Sunday night, or going to a meeting, or going to visit a hospital or something like that. So I don't know. You may have you may have a pastor who's much more disciplined than I am, but it's pretty hard. But one of the things it's pretty hard to be that consistent with them. But one thing we're always consistent with our kids doing is we always put them to bed and tuck them in and prayed with them. And then we would always pray for them specifically, even like when they were so young, they didn't understand any of it. We really just, our prayer for them was that they would have a heart for the poor. That's it. Very vague, I think, right? I wasn't trying to say, I want you to be a missionary or I want you to be in ministry. I just want them to have a heart of compassion for the poor. And I'm thankful that God really answered that prayer. And my kids have always, we've given them a lot of opportunities to work with the homeless and to go serve in a lot of different ways. And they love it. Like, they still do it. All through my son's time at Berkeley, he actually was doing this ministry where they just collect quarters. They collect quarters and they just go to a laundromat and invite the homeless to come to the laundromat, and they just do their laundry for them for free. Just a group of college students from his fellowship, and they would just go every single week, and every single Sunday they would be there for 2 hours and just do homeless people's laundry. And it was just a cool thing for them because they just got to hang out with them, right? Laundry takes like 1.5 hours, right? So then they're just there to hang out with them and talk with them. And I'm sure the free laundry saved them some money, but I'm pretty sure that they just like having somebody to talk to that cared about them. And yeah, my son just did that. I didn't even find out he did it until he'd already been doing it for 3 years. And now I'm trying to copy it, actually, in Mountain View, and get churches in Mountain View to do it. So I'll tell you more about that later. And then my daughter, yeah, one of the greatest joys was I went to LA because I had a meeting, and then I got to hang out with my daughter one night. And she was like, oh, do you want to go with me to serve the homeless? But apparently my daughter too. She goes every Tuesday to feed the homeless at a church in Santa Monica. And yeah, it was cool to watch my daughter talk with people and know them all. And so I love that. But what I want to share with you, I'll put it up on the screen. Maybe we have to turn the lights down a little bit. We have this Leong family covenant, okay? And I wanted to share it with you. I stole this from Mike Singletary, who used to be the coach of the 49ers. They have the Singletary family covenant. And I thought, this is a great idea, right? And his is like, we're a family of champions. That's what his says, because he is a champion, 1984 Chicago Bears. So I decided one day we should do a family covenant for our family. We are not a family of champions. We're a family of participation trophies, right? We show up, but we're not champions. But it made me and my wife sit down and think about what we want our family to be. What would be the values that we have? And what would be important for us that we want to pass on to our kids, right? And so I'm going to share this with you. The fonts are all weird because, I don't know, my wife decided it looks funnier this way. Like, it's more memorable. And then we wrote this, and then my kids still make fun of me, but I used to make them recite it before dinner. And then I did it when we first did it. We did it for like a month, and they still mock me for it. They're like, remember when you made us keep reading the family covenant? Well, I don't remember any of it. That's what they say. But I'm going to say my kids live out almost every part of this thing. So whether or not they remember even one part of it, they have internalized it. It's just become them. And it gave me and my wife a chance too to prayerfully sit down and just decide, what do we want our family to be about? Who are we and who do we want to be? And so here's what it is. It says, we are a family of servant leaders, and this is our calling. We live in the love and mercy of our Lord Jesus, and he is the source of our strength. We have infinite grace for each other. We are agents of change in the place God has sent us, wherever that may be. Our home is a place of hospitality, safety, and care. It is a place of exuberant joy and laughter and a place of warmth and love. Oh, it's long. Okay. That's why my kids hate it. Okay. They just wanted to eat. So we know that all we have is from God and we treat our possessions with care. We always choose courage over fear because we know God is with us. Our eyes are always searching for what God is doing that we may join him. Our ears are always listening for his still small voice. Our hearts are ever ready to pray, and our feet are always ready to move. Because we are a family, we care for each other with love and respect, putting the concerns of others first and making encouragement, responsibility, and trust our main priorities as family members. We model for others unselfishness, kindness, and forgiveness. We value each member of our family, and we show our affection for each other through word and deed. I think that's it. Yeah. I wanted to share it with you because I think it's a good exercise to do as a family, right? It doesn't matter how old you are either. You could still do it. And we just post this in our kitchen next to the table. And yeah, they say they don't remember any of it, but they're lying. Yeah. And then we did different things. So for 1 month, we read it every day. And then at another point, we would just talk about one line at a time for 1 week, right? So we'd just be like, okay, let's talk about what this means. We always choose courage over fear because we know God is with us. And so for 1 week, every day during dinner, we would just talk about what that means a little bit, right? And then, at some point we got too busy and we forgot about it. Or we moved, and then I don't know where it is anymore. But it's also for other people when they came to visit our house to see what we're about too. Whether they're Christians or non-Christians, they just got to see what it means and what's important to us. So I don't know. I want to recommend you doing it. It's not my idea. I stole it from a Super Bowl champion and a 49er coach, and I think it's a great idea. Yeah. But it's something cool you could do. But I think it's important for your kids to know what you want, not them to be about, but what you want us to be about, right? And you live it out. And you can shape it to who you are too. Yeah. I sent it to Sebastian, so if you want a copy of it, he can give you one later just to use as a model, because I use Singletary's as a model for mine. And you can actually look up Singletary Family Covenant on Google, and you can see what his looks like. His is cooler than mine. But it's such a good thing to do. I think it's just so important that our kids always knew what we were about as a family, because our lives were crazy in ministry. We constantly had people over. Our family was so chaotic that sometimes my kids would be like, they'd come home from school and they'd be like, who's coming over for dinner today? Right? And they'd be so weirded out when nobody was over for dinner because our house is just crazy. Like, I didn't know if I'd come home and my wife would say, oh, there's 10 people coming over for dinner. And I'd be like, okay, that's fine. And I would do the same to her, right? Or when my kids would come home and they would bring a dozen people over for dinner. It's like, fine, it's whatever. We always wanted our house to be the place where their kids hang out because, subversively, that's the way you know who their friends are, right? And get to hang out with them. And then, then my son decided in high school he didn't want to have his friends ever come over because they couldn't swear because I'm a pastor, right? And I didn't say that. And he didn't say that either, but they felt like they couldn't be themselves when they were around me. Yeah, that's fine. I was like, I know those words. You could say them. I'm just not going to say them back to you. That's all. Yeah. So, but we wanted our house to be like that. And we have gifts of hospitality, me and my wife, so we love having people over. I like to cook. So it doesn't matter to me. And I also love buying meat that's on discount. So I have a freezer that's constantly full of meat. So I can feed 20 people in an hour if I need to, and I don't mind. So that's just us using our gifts to be, the family that we can be. And your gifts might be different, right? But it's really good. And I think for some of those friends, like my son's friends, somehow all of his friends come from broken families. And almost none of them have dads. which is a strange thing. But I love that about my son because these are the people he loves to hang out with, right? And he's just compassionate and feels like he fits in well with them. But he used to be so embarrassed that he had a dad who loves him. Yeah. And one time we were at one kid's graduation party, and then he was messing around, and I was like, BJ, across the room, and he immediately froze. And everybody stopped, right? Because it was super weird. And then one of his friends said, "Ha, your dad loves you." Yeah. Yeah. And what's been great is I just got to be a dad to those guys a lot of times. Even though they didn't come around and hang around at our house a lot, I still saw them all the time. I drove them to football games. I drove them to wrestling matches. I was always around in different ways. And yeah, I just got to show these kids who have no dad what a dad looks like. And yeah, some of them, I don't know, they don't want to hang out with me because they want to swear or whatever. But I think it's good for that. Yeah, we get those opportunities in life in these little ways to be a part of other people's lives. And yeah, one of his best friends, yeah, still comes over all the time to hang out with me. Yeah. And one of them got kicked out of his house and stayed at our house for 3 months when BJ was in college already. He was at community college, and then his parents kicked him out, and he just stayed at our house instead. So I think there's these opportunities in life that we have to live out these values. And you never know when God will bring those opportunities around, but you just kind of do it when you can, right? We try to coach our kids' teams if we can. We try to be the team parent in sports that they're in or volunteer a lot at school. Do those things. It's great. It's a powerful time, right? And it's time, like I ran the scoreboard for my daughter's field hockey team. We would have the coaches over for dinner and things like that. The kids hated that so much. But just be in their lives in ways that you can because time's super short. And so when you can do those things and also be a part of the community, and we're still really good friends with all the football parents that we were on the football team with when our son was in football. And so this is an opportunity to do that. So it's kind of like, that's what we're like. So now I will tell you about the kinds of things we do in the community. And I mean, because God's really made amazing things happen. And it's been cool. And none of it's about me. This is the most important thing. Is if I did anything, I just kind of did the things God called me to do and walked indoors when God opened doors. But for me, working in the community, I've told you about our safe parking ministry, but it all just started, and sorry if I told you this already. I mean, it all just started because I went to a conference in 2008, and the pastor said, if your church burned down tomorrow, would anybody in your neighborhood care? Right? And yeah, that destroyed me because I'm from a Chinese church. Chinese churches never do anything in the community, right? Like they don't care. They're kind of 1 foot out the door all the time. And they're not thinking about the United States or their neighborhood or their city or anything like that, right? They might fly to Taiwan to vote, but they don't care what their neighbor's doing, right? Which is a crazy thing. But I was like, okay, well, God, you put me in this church and it's full of these people and this is the way they live, right? Which is fine. But then, yeah, nobody in the city would care if our church burned down. So what are we supposed to do about that? And as I continued to pray about it, like God told me, not only do I want you to have the city care, but I think you should become a pillar of the community, right? So this image was just constantly in my head that the church needs to be like helping hold up the city. And my actual prayer was, God, I just want the city one time to come to us because they need help with something. That's it. Just one time. Because then it would show that we were important, right? And that they trusted us to do something in the city. But then I didn't know what to do. I really didn't. So we did this thing at church. I did a program called Heaven Sent. And we basically gave every small group, every family, anybody who wanted it, $100 bill. That's it. And we said, your job is to take this $100 and go use it to bless somebody in the name of Jesus. That's it. Your job is not to get people to come to church. Your job is not to make more money. They are Chinese, you know. And you can't just give it away. Like you have to use the money to bless somebody else, right? And we kind of forced it on them, right? We didn't give them a choice. And in the end, I gave away $4,800. 48 different groups. It was a family or a small group or just, you know, the youth group did it. Every group kind of did it. $4,800, which is a weird thing for church to do, right? But everybody was kind of weirded out that church was giving them money. They're like, oh, I thought I give church money. Church doesn't ever give me money, but I literally just lined 48 people up along the stage and gave them each one. And then we commissioned them and sent them off. And they found amazing things to do. Like people really got creative with how to bless people. Some people used the money and they made dinner for a rehab center. Some went to a senior center and went through a whole party one day for them. Our group, we went to a teen challenge, mother and children, you know, mothers on rehab with a drug addiction center, and we threw a Christmas party for their kids, right? And just we spent like the whole day with them doing crafts and singing songs with these kids at their rehab center. We got creative, right? And that was 2009, and then we still do some of those ministries now. It's a long time we've been doing some of them. And then people just kind of started picking it up. But the main thing that happened was I got connected with this group called Community Services Agency. One of our members went to go serve the homeless there with their group. So they gave them the money to serve the homeless, and then they took their whole small group and they passed out produce to the homeless that day. Because back then, CSA was giving out produce to like 125 families every other Tuesday. So this group, they were retired, they went out and they did that. And they introduced me to them, and I was like, this is my key. Because this group kind of serves the homeless for the whole city of Mountain View. So let me go talk to them. So I went and I made a appointment with their executive director, and he was like, "Who's this guy?" So he made me meet with the assistant director. But she was this really nice lady, which is great. A really nice lady, and then she said, "Oh, yeah, there's a place for you to help as a pastor. We have this group called Alpha Omega. It's a group of churches that they used to house the homeless in the church on a rotating shelter. But now they just do health kits for the homeless. And so you could join them." So I was like, okay, let's go. They meet once a month on a Wednesday, like last Wednesday of the month or whatever. So I put it on my calendar. That day I went to this meeting. I go to the front desk. "Hi, I'm here for Alpha Omega." The guy was like, okay. I went upstairs. I don't know why he was weirded out, but then I found out why he was weirded out, because everybody in that group was a 75-year-old or older white lady. And they'd been doing this ministry for 35 years already. Just these 5 ladies had been doing this whole time. They were the Alpha Omega Task Force. They hadn't had a new member in 35 years. And then I just sat down there. I was like, hi. But you know what? I went every month. I met with them when it was our turn. We went in their rotation of building health kits. And when it was our turn, our church did it. We built all these health kits that were given out to the homeless. And, it was really boring, actually. I had to sit there for an hour every month with the old ladies. They were really nice, though. But what happened in that meeting all the time was that the homeless coordinator for the city would come in and give some stats, right? First one, she sat down. She said, let me give you the statistics for February. The numbers for homeless have gone up a lot. I was like, oh, what? I never see homeless people in Mountain View. She said, yeah, they've gone up a lot. This month we had 30 homeless people. And I almost laughed out loud because I'm from Oakland. I was like, 30? 30 homeless people. We have 30 homeless people on my block. So I don't know what a big deal that is, but she was like so concerned. Numbers have gone up. 30. Yeah. And I was like, what am I doing here? Like, who cares? Right. But it was Mountain View, Los Altos Hills. There's not a lot of homeless people. But I kept going. I was in this group for 2 years. And at the end of that 2 years, the number of homeless had gone up to 350. So I was just watching. I just went into this time. This is God's timing, right? I just went on this time when it went from 30 to 350 in 2 years. And I was like, something's going on here. Okay, I'm pretty dense. Something's going on here. This seems bad, right? But it was bad. Like the number of homeless was growing so fast in Mountain View, and nobody knew what to do. And CSA also, they were kind of like, I don't know how to deal with this. They had like one person working with the homeless in the whole organization of 60 people because the problem had been so small, and now it had grown to so much. And then one day, she said, oh, we have this really big problem. There's a special needs kid who's homeless in our school district, but the only shelter for families is in East San Jose. And so she was telling me this, and I was like, okay, this sounds bad. So that kid, because he's special needs, he was able to get a ride from the school district. Like the school district arranged transportation for every kid. But they had special budgets for special needs kids. But that kid had to get picked up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to school, because to go pick up all the other kids along the way, and he was the farthest. Can you imagine that? Like a special needs kid having to be in the car for 2.5 hours each way every day to get to school. And I was like, this is not okay. Like, we need to do something about this. And, I don't know what to do. I don't know anything about homelessness, and I don't understand anything, really. So one night, I don't know, I think my wife took the kids somewhere and I was by myself at home, which almost never happens. But this one night I was at home and I was like, I should do something about this. And so I had been reading about this supervisor from Santa Clara County, Joe Simidian. And I kept reading in the newspaper that he had made all these initiatives for homelessness. And I was like, this guy seems to care about homelessness. Maybe I should email him. And it's just one of those weak moments when you do something dumb. And so in the middle, I don't know, I still remember I was sitting in the dark with my laptop, right? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna email him. And so I emailed Joe Simidian, this guy I don't know. And I said, hey, I'm a pastor in Mountain View, and I just want to know how the church can help the homeless. Let me know, right? And then I don't know. Then I sent it, which is weird, right? I don't do this. I'm not like this. Yeah, okay. So then Monday, I got a call. Yeah, and they said, yeah, can you come? Why don't you come meet with us? And let's make an appointment and let's talk. Yeah. So now at this point, I'd already started, I put together a group of pastors from around Mountain View, and we were praying in City Hall. And that had been happening for about a year. Because I just wanted us to pray for the city, and I wanted churches to start working together. So I had this a year before this email had happened. I had put together a breakfast, and I begged my deacons board for $1,000 so I could throw a breakfast for all the pastors in Mountain View, and they were like, okay. So I just had a catered breakfast. I invited every single pastor in every single church. I found their emails. I sent mail. I sent a postcard by mail. I said, just come for a prayer breakfast for Mountain View. And like 30 pastors came to this thing. And I was like, hey, let's just work together. So why don't we just pray together? And in the end, out of those 30 pastors, only 5 said they would pray together. But we'd gotten together this group in prayer. One of the employees in the city manager's office for the city was a believer at one of these pastors' churches. And she said, you know what? I can get you access to the city council meeting room to pray. why don't you come pray here? So we just started praying. So we'd been doing that for a year. And I mean, some big churches were, not ours, but some big churches were involved in that prayer thing. And so I went to Joe Simidian's office. I talked to the aide, and she was like, so what do you want? Right? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, look, I meet with a group of pastors. Our churches represent 10,000 people who worship in the city of Mountain View every Sunday. And we just want to know what you want us to do. That's all. We're ready to help. So just you tell me. Yeah. I saw her write that down. 10,000. That's all she wrote. Yeah. And then I didn't hear anything for like a year and a half. Yeah. And we're still praying. We're meeting. And I was like, I did it. I'm not going to tell anybody I did it. We just had that meeting. It was fine. And like a year and a half later, I get a call from Joe Simidian's office. And the lady that I'd met with, she basically said, hey, have you heard of safe parking? And I said, no. What is that? And she said, well, in the city of Santa Barbara, they had a big problem with people living in RVs. And so they opened up parking spaces in church parking lots so people in RVs could park safely at night. And I said, oh, that's nice, right? And she said, do you think your group of pastors would be open to doing that at their churches? And I said, no. Nobody at my church would ever let homeless people park in the parking lot, right? But I said, you know what? We're praying tomorrow. We're meeting for prayer tomorrow at City Hall. So I'll ask. I'll just ask and I'll let you know. So I went to that next meeting. I waited till the very end of the meeting because I was like, this is going to be a dumb point, right? So let's get the praying done and let's do our regular meeting. At the very end, I was like, oh, hey guys. So somebody from the county asked if we would be open to having people park in our parking lots at night, homeless people. Anybody want to do that? And all the pastors looked at me and said, yeah, let's do that. We should do that. And I was like, oh man, okay, whatever. So I called the county and it just started this whole thing. Like meetings with all these different people with the housing and urban development. People flew in from Washington, D.C. because this had never been done before outside of Santa Barbara. And so to kind of do this like in an organized way, it just became a thing. So this is just like people from the state, people from the federal, people from the county, all in this meeting with me and the director of the community service agency who wouldn't meet with me at first. And we're just in there now. Yeah, so we just started this process and it became pretty clear that in order to do it, we would have to like start our own 501c3 nonprofit organization to make it happen. The government doesn't like to give churches money. So you can't just give a religious organization money. So we had to create something else that was non-religious to take the money in. And so, yeah, one member of my church one day drove all the way to Sacramento to register our name as a 501c3 nonprofit. He was just totally jazzed about it. I don't know why. He could have done it by mail, but he was like, I think symbolically, I want to drive to Sacramento and do it. He said, you want to go? And I said, no, that sounds terrible. So, but he did it. He just drove all the way to Sacramento. He went in line at the whatever office and he created Move Mountain View that day. And we called it Move Mountain View because we just want to have a faith that moves mountains. And so we started this thing, and us and these other churches from this prayer group, we just all worked together and we started this ministry. We only could so all of us wanted to do it, right? But only 2 of us could actually get parking spaces. 2 of the churches, their congregation said no. They brought it to the church to vote, and the church said, we don't want homeless people in our parking space. So 2 of them came back and said no. One of them, the church was totally into it, and then the neighborhood fought them, right? They were just on the Mountain View, Los Altos border in a really nice big house, mansions neighborhood, and their neighbors ganged up on them in this horrible town hall meeting we had at the church one day. And fortunately, I had invited the chief of police to come talk, because if he wasn't there, there would have been a fight, like a physical fight. Everyone was so mad at each other. Everybody's screaming at each other. People were like, how dare you bring homeless people into our neighborhood? It was so terrible. 2 hours long of this. The whole time I just wanted to curl up under the chair. It was so nasty and so toxic. So that church was out. So the only churches that were left was my church and one other church. And then at my own church, there was a whole group of people who super wanted to fire me. Yeah. And so we had a town hall meeting. Yeah. And at that town hall meeting, most people were calling for my head, even though I was like, we don't have to do it, right? I'm doing this organization separately from Lord's Grace. So we don't have to do it, but I think we should do it. Yeah. But people were like, why don't you just let people park in your driveway? That actually happened. Or my favorite comment was, what if my 3-year-old kid is walking around in the parking lot and he runs into a homeless person? And I was like, why is your 3-year-old walking around in the parking lot? That's probably the biggest problem. Yeah. So it was a very nasty meeting too. And I left so that they could kind of vote. And somehow, by God's grace, they still voted yes. And some of those people left the church, which is great. Yeah. And then we did it. So we started off our program with 6 parking spaces. That's it. 3 in each parking lot. That's what the city would allow. 3 homeless in each parking lot. All of us only wanted to allow women in the beginning, and only cars. So no RVs, because RVs seem scary to people. And that's how we started Move Mountain View. We started with those 6. And then I had to create this whole organization. We hired a director to run it. We were supposed to hire what we called lot monitors, which is kind of like a light version of security, but somebody who's 24/7 on call in case there are problems through the community or whatever, or with the guests in the lot. I went to the police 4 nights so that I could meet with every single police officer. So I hit 4 different shifts, and we explained to every single police officer in Mountain View how the program works and answered all their questions so they wouldn't be afraid, right? And worried about it. And they knew exactly where they were, and they knew everything. We just tried to do everything right. We couldn't find a lot monitor for a long time, so I was the lot monitor. So I constantly had this flip phone that anybody could call me on at any time of night. And sometimes they did in the beginning. And so it was like super crazy, but then it started going really well. And we found out that most of the people living in our parking lots were senior citizens. That actually the biggest group of homeless that were living in cars were seniors. Like they were getting kicked out. They couldn't, on fixed incomes, afford to live in Mountain View, but they were all had their doctors and all their specialists in Mountain View at Camino hospitals. So they were like, I'd rather stay in my car than move and go get a different doctor and get all this else. So we just had these parking lots full of like elderly women and living by themselves. And it was really tough. And one of the first people living in our parking lot was actually a 19-year-old girl with a 2-month-old baby. And she was living in like an old Toyota Corolla. And our church, that helped so much actually, because when our church saw that, they were like, oh, okay, this is not what I imagined homeless people would be like. And my church brought blankets and diapers and all kinds of stuff to help her out. And thankfully, after about a month and a half, she found better housing somewhere else for herself. But I don't know, it's gone really well. Right now we have 133 parking spaces. We started with 6. Now we have 133 parking spaces. And through those 133 parking spaces, we've put 852 families through those spaces. So that means one person comes in, they stay for a couple months, we help them find permanent housing, and then they go and we fill the space with somebody else. So every space we can usually get like six different vehicles a year through. We just give them case managers, social workers to work with to help them get into permanent housing, to help them find permanent jobs, to help them get their life back on track. And then we move more people through. And so it's been a crazy journey. I actually don't know what goes on day to day anymore. The director took over. She's great. And now we have 12 employees, and the whole thing's fully funded by the county. So we take some private donations, and we do need them, but for the most part, most of our budget is paid for by government instead. And it's been a really great thing to see God do that. Other cool things that have happened are like, yeah, a lot of the ladies in our parking lot like to come to church on Sundays, and it's been really cool to build relationships with them. It's also been heartbreaking at times if you ever tried to build a relationship with a homeless person. There was one lady, she's like an elderly blonde lady. So you could see when she was at church, right? She stood out a lot. And I knew she was one of our guests, but nobody else did. And she told me, she was like, "Can you not tell anybody else that I live in the parking lot? I don't want them to treat me like a homeless person. I just want to be here." But at some point, I don't know, somehow it got out. Somebody figured out that she lived there. And it's not that people were mean, it's that they were like super too nice. You know what I mean? Like they were like, "Oh, how can I take you out to eat?" and things like that. And one day she just came to me crying. And she said, "I just want to be normal. I don't want everyone to treat me like there's something wrong with me." And a week later, she was gone. And I haven't ever seen her again. So there's hard things too. There's like lessons to learn, and I don't even know I wouldn't even know if I could do it again, how I would make it better. But it did, it's lessons we learn about what that life is like and what it's like to be homeless and just wanting to have a normal life, but having such a hard time. And all of our guests, I've only had to call the police one time in all these years, right? We opened our lot in 2018. So in all these years, there was one lady who would not leave. And one of our rules is you can't have a weapon. You can't have drugs, you can't have alcohol, and you can't have weapons. And before you couldn't have a pet, but now you can have a pet. But this lady, one of the other guests had seen her with a knife. And so we were like, surrender the knife or you have to leave. And then she wouldn't give up either. So I had to call the cops. And I gave her until midnight one night to go. This is still when I had the flip phone. So I called the cops and I was like, "All right, I'm sorry. I need you to help me with this guest because she's not willing to leave." So we go out at 1:00 in the morning, right? And it's a pitch black parking lot. Like you can't see anything back there at the back of this church. And it was so scary. And she was in this big like F-150 truck. And the police officer brought like 8 other police officers. So there's just like the whole shift in the parking lot of this church. And we're just hanging out. And I was like, "Look, she has a knife. She's a little crazy. I don't, be careful." And then I was like, "Come on, let's go. I'll go with you." And the police officers were like, "No, you stay here. We'll go." So 3 of them go back there and they were gone a heck a long time. Right. And I was like I was just standing there with the other police officers chatting, but I was like, this is taking a long time. But, I love police officers. They totally diffused the whole thing. And they were like, "We just had a normal conversation with her. She agreed to leave in the morning. It's going to be okay." It was good. It's the only time we've ever had to call the police. No violent incidents or anything like that, which is pretty great for 850 vehicles. Like only one time have we ever had to call the cops. So the police love us actually, because it keeps all of those guys off the street where it's a lot more unstable for them. Yeah. And the other thing that's beautiful is, our clients always tell us before they came into the parking lot, they used to have to spend 2 or 3 hours every night to try to find a parking space. So imagine that. knowing that every night for 2 or 3 hours, you have to drive around the city to look for a place to park your car where it's legal and no one will harass you. And it's not like bright lights are shining on you so you can get some sleep, because most of our clients, 70% of our clients work, and most of them have 2 or 3 jobs. So they need sleep when they come in, right? And so 2 to 3 hours to find a parking space. And when they get to our lots, they love it because they know there's a space designated just for them. And imagine what you would do with 2 or 3 extra hours of your day. So many of them find jobs immediately. You know, so many of them just move out because once they can have a safe place and some free Wi-Fi to look for new places or find other things, they can do it. It's really quick. And that's why we've been able to move people in and out of the spaces so fast, because once they have that kind of stability for themselves, it's very easy. Yeah. You know, and that said, we know that of the homeless population, the ones who live in their cars are the highest functioning of all of them, right? They have a license, they have insurance for their cars, they keep a working vehicle in order, right? So they're not drug addicts, they're not like alcoholics, like they're just normal people trying to make it in the world, and giving them just a little bit of space for themselves, they do really well for themselves. The record for getting out of our lot is less than 1 day. One client was in our parking lot that morning. She was interviewed by NPR about life in a car. And the next day she got a job from somebody who was listening on NPR that day. She was an advertising executive. And leave it at that. She just got divorced and her husband took everything. So she just ended up in a car. So she's just talking about it on NPR, and then a company hired her. She had a job the next day. That was the fastest I've ever seen anybody get out of the lot. Yeah, but some interesting people we meet in this group of people. Yeah, so I don't know. That's what I do, among other things. But that's the story of Move Mountain View, and it still keeps going. And I think we're blessed because the county, Santa Clara County, is in big financial problems this year, huge deficits. But I just found out from my executive director that they're only going to cut us less than 6% of our budget, which is pretty good. Yeah. And so other groups are getting huge cuts in their giving, but it's good because the county finds us useful and helpful to them. Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Every parking lot has porta potties. Yeah. And sinks and garbage. Yeah. The biggest problem is laundry, actually. And we could help the garbage situation in our cities a lot if we just help homeless people launder their clothes, because otherwise they wear them till they wear out and they throw them out. So if we can help them to clean their clothes and be able, to keep their clothes in good shape, then actually we could help the garbage situation, and we could help their hygiene situation and their ability to keep jobs, right? Because when they can't clean their clothes, it's really difficult. It's easier for them to take a shower, find like a free shower, than it is to wash clothes. So the one thing I'm working on right now, if any of you wants to do this, I'm trying to get a laundromat to just let us do what my son does and just have 4 hours on Sunday that we can just invite the homeless in and we'll do laundry. So my thing is, if a church takes every Sunday, like one Sunday a month. So you just take the first Sunday of the month, then you basically have a month for your church to collect quarters. And then when it's your week, you just go there for 4 hours, just have a few volunteers, bring some snacks, and just do their laundry for them. Bring some laundry detergent from Costco, and then do their laundry for them and hang out with them, eat snacks. On a Sunday, families will just bring their kids, so you can just play games with the kids at the laundromat, like bring board games for them and just hang out. You could do 2 shifts of 2 hours and hang out with families, do their laundry, And you would literally save them, for a family of four, about $1,300 a year if you just did their laundry for them. Yeah. So you with kids, you know how much laundry you end up doing. So imagine if you had to pay $1.50 for every load. Um, it's a lot, right? So you could save them a lot of money, and you could hang out with them, and we could share the gospel with them. Why not? And build relationships with them. So I'm working on that now. I need to find a desperate enough laundromat to let me purposely bring homeless people in for 4 hours. Yeah. So we're working on that. So I don't know. Any other questions? Is Our church is about 600 people because we have Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. Yeah. So it used to be the only Cantonese speaking church in the South Bay. Yeah. So that's why it got kind of big. So, yeah. We screen the clients. So of our 12 employees for Move Mountain View, 4 are case workers or case managers, and they have to go through a county system to vet each person. Yeah. So even though technically the biggest question every church always has is, do you do FBI background checks, which you cannot legally do? But we have to put them through a county system to enter them in, and it'll always put up all of their legal things. So it's not an FBI background check, but it's the same thing. Yeah. So we have to check each one of our guests. Yeah. And the county's constantly tracking them. So we know who they are. We can. We don't, there's other groups. So we partnered with other groups to bring food and go do ministry with them. So out of a group of our lots in Mountain View, a church has built up. Like one of my friends was delivering food there every week to the parking lots and bringing them food. And she speaks Spanish, so she was meeting with them, and a lot of them needed a church. So she brought in a pastor from San Jose, and they started meeting, and now it's so many people. It's 50 people. They had their first baptism like a couple months ago, and they had their first wedding, like two 60-year-olds. Two 60-year-old homeless people married each other, and it was great. It was beautiful. It was crazy. Uh, yeah, yeah, I did. So, but then this church built out of it. So they're about to get a building. Like they're trying to work with a church that's dying to go acquire their building and have a church spot for the homeless. But yeah, so a lot of ministry happens. At Move, we try not to do it. In fact, all of our staff is not Christians. Yeah, all of our board are Christians, but all of our staff are not. So yeah, we decided we're okay with that, but we let other ministries go in and do ministry directly with them. But we don't want to lose our funding. So we had to register as a non-religious organization. So we can't really openly evangelize through Move. So we are pretty careful about it since all of our funding comes from the county. County is very, very sensitive about that. Yeah. 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 Water's not easy either. And yeah, like in the park, like in the church parking lot, we don't give them water. And we have some 30, like Shoreline Amphitheater, the city gave us 45 spaces at Shoreline Amphitheater, and they have one spigot for all of them. So it's not that easy. They will do it, especially families, but it's easier for them too. They're all working, so it's easier for them to just go to the laundromat. Yeah. Yeah. That's a friend of mine. He's a pastor. He developed those, and we have them come in once a week, but they can only do like so many loads a day, right? They have showers on the truck too. So it's a truck that with a water tank, it does laundry and showers, but I think they can only do like 17 in a 3 hour period or something like that because it takes too long. So that's why I think a laundromat that has like 40 machines in it, you could like do lots all at one time and just go, right? Yeah, but there's so much of a need for those trucks, we can only get them once a week. Yeah, so it's pretty tough. Anything, thanks for being so interested. I told Sebastian, nobody cares about this. Okay. Nothing specific for animals, but you know what? We did allow pets on the lot, which has been a really big thing because they're lonely otherwise. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the other thing that's been really exciting, and I knew would happen, well, I knew it would happen, but they built community in the parking lots, right? They're just like their own neighborhood. They take care of each other. They like, they help each other out on different things. I mean, some of the women on our lot, they didn't like what our gardener did, so they used to do the gardening at church. Like they went and bought clippers and they clipped back the bushes. They're like, your gardener's the worst. I did it for you, you know? Or sometimes I get to church in the morning and they're sweeping the parking lot. Yeah. So, yeah, they take care of the space, they take care of each other. It's been pretty great. Yeah. Yeah. We try to tell the story as much as we can. There was a time when we were trying to get our guests to give testimonies, but most of them want to keep private. So it's hard to, we want to maintain their privacy and not tell their stories too much or take advantage of them. So kind of hard balance. It's hard for fundraising too when they don't want to talk. But like sometimes they're like, I need somebody to share a story, please. And, like the city needs to see that you're not like a weird drug addict. Yeah. Ew. Yeah, that would be interesting. What I've always dreamed of actually is having a sleep in, like having the city just have a citywide everybody sleep in your car one night, right? So you can see what it feels like. What it feels like is bad. Yeah. And so wouldn't it be cool if we just took over the Shoreline Amphitheater parking lot and just said, who wants to come sleep in their car? Yeah, and Google will cater breakfast if you do it. That's what I don't know. I bring it up once in a while to the city and they don't want to do it. Yeah. There, there's, yeah, you can stay as long as you want, but our caseworkers are constantly trying to help them get on waiting lists for permanent housing and move them on, right? One of the biggest problems is that people get on the permanent housing waiting list but if it comes to your time and you don't answer your phone, you get back to the bottom, right? And so our social workers will monitor how they're moving. They have to meet with each person once a week. So they're watching how they're doing and they can tell you, okay, you're number 5. Like answer the phone if it comes, right? Because otherwise they just keep dropping back. So part of what the social worker does is just kind of helping them stay on top of things and where they are all the time. Yeah, but that's tragic, right? But that's the system. Like the system is totally unfair. They want to fill it right away. So if you don't answer your phone, you're done. Yeah. The other thing that we're working on right now is trying to help people transition from their vehicles to the permanent housing because we find that the saddest thing for the staff is when somebody that they got into permanent housing comes back because they just didn't know how to transition into living in an apartment, right? Or living in like an apartment with neighbors and things like that. And so they end up back in their car again. And that breaks my staff's heart And so there's a layer of care that's needed to help them for the first 6 months when they move in. But for my staff, as soon as they move one on, they pick up another one. And so they can't handle caring for the old clients for 6 months and taking care of the new one. It's too much. So we're trying to see if we can. It's hard because there's so many budget cuts everywhere, but I would like to develop a second layer of care for them. Yeah, it shouldn't actually be hard. It's just actually just people work, but it's hard to get funding for stuff like that, right? To hire somebody good who could do that. Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, I mean, homelessness will never end. That's one thing I realize and I have to come to grips with is that we can't stop people from being poor. And Jesus said it too. The poor will always be with you. But also, we have a responsibility to care for them when we can, right? And find different ways to bless them when we can. But there will always be somebody richer than somebody else, and somebody else who just can't have enough to have the same lifestyle, right? And that's tough, I think. But we can do whatever we can to make sure they feel loved, even if we can't pull them out of poverty. So I think that's what we try to do. Yeah. I mean, the other thing is it's given me, plus my wife's school board position has given us like a lot of platform with local government. Like, yeah. At one point, I was trying to get Sunnyvale. Anybody live in Sunnyvale? Trying to get the city of Sunnyvale to have safe parking because they banned RV parking a long time ago. So I've been working for 2 years, one city council person at a time. But because of my wife, I run into them all the time. Like because part of her school district's in Sunnyvale. So sometimes she has to like go be at a festival and they're at that festival and then I will get them. Right. And I'll be like, it's time for safe parking. But 2 years. And then in November, last November, they finally voted unanimously to allow safe parking in the city of Sunnyvale. And it'll start in the fall. And then the first city to start their program with money in it. Yeah. Usually we have to find the money. But for them, they put money in from the start. And so this will be Sunnyvale. Okay. Yes. You guys, okay. Mahan, I worked with Matt Mahan's staff while they were trying to develop their safe parking. And I kept trying to tell them that his system is terrible and won't work, but he did it anyway. And it's really bad. Yeah, but I don't think they really care about the homeless. They mostly care about getting rid of them. So, I mean, he put in these safe parking programs, but the system they put in is awful. And so they asked us if we would run it, and we said no, because we refused to do it the way they want it to be done. His staff is very young, and they didn't know what they were talking about, and they didn't want to listen. So I don't think San Jose's will work, but they did start one. Yeah. The pastor who designed the showers and the laundry machines, his organization took it on as a favor to Matt Mahan, but I think we all know it won't work. Yeah. So not every city does it compassionately. Yeah. It's just too bad. But San Jose's big. It's hard to do it. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not a fan of Matt Mahan. Don't ask me any more about him. Yeah. Yeah. Don't vote for him. Yeah. At churches, they're only from 7 to 7, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. In the big parking lots like Shoreline, they stay 24 hours. Yeah. But churches, they have to, unless they're coming to church on Sunday, They have to move, but they just have to move out onto the street and then they can move it back. Yeah. Yeah, and at the churches, they're all in cars, so most of them go to work anyway. Like I rarely see the ones in our lot because they don't come in till 11 o'clock when they finish work, and by the time I get to church, they're gone already. They're at work. So yeah, they mostly yeah. So we decided to only put cars in church parking lots because they're too tight for RVs to maneuver out very easily. And we have these bigger parking lots that it's easier for them to go out. So yeah. Mm, yeah. Probably. I don't get Matt Mayhem. Yeah. I don't get Matt Mayhem. I don't like him. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Under President Trump, it's legal for me to tell you not to vote for Matt Mayhem. But before Trump, pastors couldn't say stuff like that. But now he's yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm sure you have better things to do today. Any other questions? Thanks for listening about it. Yeah. No, it's good. All right. Have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Pastor Brian. It's very good information. It's sometimes we look at the homeless people we don't want to get in touch with them. It's good to hear Pastor Brian's share and with his passion about the homeless people. We need to care about them with the love from our Heavenly Father. So pray for Pastor Brian and his ministries can be continue to be shine, to be more reach out to the poor people. Thank you, Pastor Brian. Now we can start it our free time from now until 5:30 dinner time to come back. On top of the facilities like sports, the playgrounds, stuff like that. There's a good hiking. There's few good hiking trail. I talked to the office staff. They recommended 3 good route. So if you are interested to go hiking, come to see me in the back after this. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Then.
I think the battery